project of the Rotaract Club of Achievers Lanka Business School, which is conducted for the fourth consecutive year. Jumpstart is a platform for budding entrepreneurs to pitch their creative business ideas to a panel of judges in order to win prizes worth 100,000, along with knowledge and mentorship from best in the industry. Also, we connect growth stage startups with investors and give them an opportunity to receive investments from their businesses. Today's workshop will give you an understanding on sales-driven marketing, how to build a lasting brand foundation, brand equity, and so much more. Before moving on to the workshop, I would like to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors for Jumpstart 2020 are Sima Sri Lanka, Bronze Partner, Venture Frontier, Knowledge Partner, Shirtworks, Gift Partner, PwC, Advisory Partner, ELO Chambers, Legal Consultation Partner, Hub9 Co-working Space Partner, Startup X Foundry, Mentoring Partner, My Shopbox, IT Solutions Partner, Chocolate, Media Partner, and Turu, Reforestation Partner. Here's a small shout out to our bronze partner, Seema Sri Lanka, Gift Partner, Shirtworks, and Co-working Space Partner, Hub9.
Our story is one of reimagining. Reimagining who you can be, what you can achieve, and how Seema can support you. By reimagining and delivering the skills that create value for businesses, we are building an ecosystem of progress and placing you right at its center. Reimagine your career. Contact Seema Sri Lanka.
Hi guys, my name is Pula. I'm an entrepreneur. I work as a student coach and my business is based around YouTube. Hub9 has played a major role in my work life. Since Hub9 offers 24/7 access, it has been very convenient for me. Between shooting, editing my videos and doing coaching sessions, I work on a very flexible schedule. There's air conditioning, you can just come in and plug your laptop and start work. There's no hassle at all. The staff and the people you find here are really friendly. You get tea as well, so overall you can just focus on your work and get a lot of it done within a day. The internet speed here is super fast and that has helped me a lot with my upload. There's a chill out area downstairs. I go there when I need to take a break or just a change in my environment. It helps to keep my balance while I'm working here. This meeting room is really nice. I have used it for some of my interviews and I also use it for my coaching sessions and meetings with clients. If you are working here, you can easily book it for your meetings as well. During the pandemic, Hub9 has taken all the necessary precautions to keep all of us safe, so that's all good. The value I get for the 15,000 rupees I invest at Hub9 is just amazing. If you're just starting off your business, this is a good place to start.
Ahmed Irfan, Chief Digital Officer at EFL and founder at IQ. Mr. Irfan has 16 years of corporate life experience across industries such as branding and communications, telecommunications, digital services, and manufacturing, working for organizations such as JWT, Dialog Axiata, Mars Holdings. He quit the corporate world 4 years ago to pursue his entrepreneurial interests. Mr. Irfan, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind introduction, Saditi. Good evening, everyone. This is, oh wow, first time. It's different when you see yourself on the screen. Yeah, so new normal, new times. Generally used to doing forums like this in person. But I guess we all have to adjust. So doing this online is going to be a new experience. So welcome to this session, everyone at Jumpstart. I'd like to start off by thanking the organizers for inviting me. Right, so I have a few slides to share, but before I put that up, I just want to set the stage. The topic of marketing has been it's been around for a while. It's evolved. It's changed. The importance of it is largely underscored, and I think also largely misunderstood. Marketing is essential, but the role of marketing and how it is approached also, I believe, needs to be rethought. It's not just about Facebook, Google, or pretty ads and good posts. I think there's a lot beneath it, and what I want to share with you today is just exactly that. So I do have. So I think when Priyan reached out to me and said, can you talk about marketing? Can you talk about sales? Can you talk about PR? Can you talk about branding? Technically, each of those are like a 3-hour workshop. But what I want to leave with you today is a thought process. Y'all are building businesses, or y'all are working in businesses that have started and are starting to grow. I have personal experience of working in large businesses, but I built about 5 or 6 ventures of my own and faced the same struggle. So what I'm sharing with you is more from personal experience and a thought process that I believe in. I'll be speaking for about maybe 40 to 60 minutes, depending on the speed of things, showing you some examples, and then we can probably take a few minutes or quite a few minutes after that to ask questions and clarify. So let me share my screen. Oops, sorry. I hope my screen is visible. It would help if one of the organizers just give me a confirmation.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you very much. So I titled this presentation finding your true north. So finding your true north is generally a conversation around growth. Personally, it's a very important word for me. Growth as in a personal capacity and a professional capacity, and I think any organization, whether it's just starting out or it's established, whether it's large or small, its constant priority and focus is growth. So how do you really find your true north is really the conversation. So what I want to share with you are thoughts on what's called value creation and value exchange, also known as sales and marketing. Right, so I just want to start off with a story. I noticed that some of you are probably born in this year. This is the year I set for my A-levels. So in 1996, Sabir and Jack, they want to start a company called JavaSoft. They built a web-based emails. Those days, web-based email systems were not as common as it is today. Big deal to have your own private email. And then they came up with Hotmail. I think you've heard of the term today, called a growth hack. I think this is the original growth hack. When they wanted to promote Hotmail, they just put this favorite line at the bottom of every email. I love you. Get your free email at Hotmail at the bottom of each email. This got people thinking. Imagine if you send someone an email from Hotmail, and at the bottom it just says I love you, get your free email at Hotmail. It was an interesting exercise. They did this because they really understood their customer psyche, their customer journey, and how to really onboard customers. So one of the earlier stories around insightful thinking around the customer, knowing the customer, thinking out of the box, and looking at how you grow from day one. This little tactic of theirs, they started averaging 3,000 new users a day. Within 6 months, they were up to 1 million users. And then, they hit the 2 million user mark 5 weeks later. And then when they sold to Microsoft in 1.5 years, they had 8.5 million users. Now, we would all like this to be our story, right? We've come up with an idea. We've invested in that idea, blood, sweat, and tears. We are trying to scale the business, and we want to make a success out of it. We would like to either exit it or benefit from the growth that business creates. So what really is the role then of marketing, branding, and sales in all of this? So my conversation is going to be mostly around how you should be viewing growth. It's not easy. I think we all know that. But how do you plan for growth and how do you achieve growth? Are a couple of simple steps and doing those simple steps very, very well. And the reality is 9 out of 10 stories don't end up like this. They don't end up being a success story, and they don't end up being or experiencing rapid growth. So this is what we would like to see when we start a business. We probably see this in some of our initial metrics. When we start a business, we would probably see a few months or a few years of toil and then a hockey stick growth. But the reality is more like this, right? And there's a reason for that. There are market dynamics at play. There are consumer dynamics at play. And think of the current situation. I don't think anyone could have planned for market dynamics that we face currently. There are businesses that are winners in today's context, but there are businesses that are also losers in today's context. And planning for growth or planning for success is becoming increasingly harder. I want to talk about the startup curve before I get into a conversation around marketing and branding. I think all of you all, if you've started a business or you're working in a startup, will experience this or has experienced this. I have many times. When you first have an idea, that as you initiate that idea, you see some growth, you see a lot of traction, you see a lot of initial momentum. But as the novelty starts wearing off, you see what's called this trough of sorrow. It's like you're in a drain, it's a trough of sorrow. You're working on constant releases of improvement. You're trying to understand the customer better, but it just keeps failing. You will see some false wiggles of hope, but you keep crashing. But if you can see yourself through this, that's when you really start seeing growth. Let me talk you through an example here. So in my entrepreneurial journey, I came up with a concept for a vending machine, and the idea there was vending machines don't work in Sri Lanka because people steal the cash from the vending machine. So the tech crunch was, let's build a vending machine that doesn't take cash, that dispenses items based on a different method of payment. So the method of payment was add to bill. You walk up to the vending machine, select what you like. It gives you a one-time password. You enter that password in your phone. The cost is added to your bill, and the item comes out of the machine. Now, once the novelty wore off, the trough of sorrow was, does the consumer really need this? What consumer pain point are we solving? We hadn't really answered that clearly. Why can't a customer walk over to a shop and do the same thing? There's a 12% tax that it gets added to the phone bill. There is a fear factor around a machine. So the travel of sorrow just kept driving the team to constantly look for, and here we are doing videos, doing social media posts, pitching this to brands, to customers, really wondering what's going wrong. And we could move beyond 10 machines because fundamentally we really hadn't understood what value that business was creating, what the value to the customer was, and what the value to the product was. So we never really saw the promised land. We had to park that project because it faced what's called that crash of ineptitude, because it really wasn't clear around the customer value we were creating, whether it's for a brand or whether it's for a user. So it's really important to be honest with yourself and understand the fact that you will go through this journey. And one of the strongest tools you will have in helping you get through this journey is building a strong brand and building a strong value proposition. I will explain that before, but if you take anything from today's conversation, please take this away. If you want your business to succeed, you need to have a strong value proposition and a strong brand. And I will detail that as we move on. So I think as is with any business, we get caught up in these metrics, right? How much of traffic are we driving? How many, and traffic will lead to users will lead to revenue, but that never really works, right? We look at different phases of our business. We get caught up in what's called vanity metrics. We have so many likes, so many followers, so much of traffic, but do we really have users? And does that user have a yield? If it's an e-commerce site, it might have 200,000 users, but how many of them are recurring on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? How is the average basket value growing? What is the product mix that they're buying? Can we change that product mix? We don't really look at that because we're not thinking about the customer. We're thinking about the platform. We're thinking about our tech solution. We are in love with our product, but we're essentially not in love with the customer and what the customer wants and what the customer is trying to achieve, and therefore what our brand or product marketing should mean to them. So it really is time to change this. Business is not built this way. Business is built in a far more fundamental way, and business is built through marketing, through the lens of marketing, and I'll explain how. So what I constantly talk to, whether it's an established company, which is called an incumbent, or a startup, your product journey, your marketing journey, your brand journey goes across 3 areas, right? So remember, we are talking about building a value proposition first. So anything you do should answer these 2 questions. How am I making meaning? And therefore, how am I making money? And answering these 2 questions and bridging this gap is what good marketing, good branding helps you achieve. So what does it mean by make meaning or make marketing? I think as is famous saying, right? If you can't mean something to everyone, you need to mean something to someone. So you need to be really clear about who you're talking to, what value you're offering them, and therefore how much money they will pay you for that offer and for that offering. Figuring that out, managing that out is the fundamental role of marketing overall. So let's look at how that breaks down. So essentially, the role of marketing in building a business is these 5 steps. The first step is what really is the consumer insight. What really is the marketing insight? Based on that insight, what really is the value proposition, and how do you package that, test it, and acquire? Let's take some examples here. Let's take a few international and then a few local as well. Take ride sharing, take Uber. What really is the insight in Uber or ride sharing? The fundamental insight there is how do you get strangers to trust other strangers and get into their car? Or if I'm a driver, how do I get to a position where I'm trusting enough to get somebody else into my car and give them a ride. Because the larger insight is, using a taxi or a cab is cumbersome. But the fundamental insight around trust, breaking a code of conduct of getting strangers to trust each other, was the fundamental insight that ride sharing and particularly Uber was built on. So the value proposition there is, it's very clear, getting strangers to trust each other and creating a much better ecosystem to get from point A to point B than just being dependent on a cab service. And packaging that value was very, very important in terms of how Uber got its brand strategy going. It stood for one single concept, the concept of movement around how it communicated itself. And then again, in terms of how they then acquired their market, tested their market, and drove business value was then through their social media channels, their customer acquisition, and their whole partner acquisition programs. But all of it started with a very, very powerful insight, a very, very powerful value proposition, and how that value proposition was packaged and taken to the market. So how does that happen? I think, again, is essentially why I said we need to think about how we make meaning and how we make money. So let's talk a little bit about making meaning. And I think this goes a little bit. So in marketing, there are two sides, right? There's a design side, a design and a strategy side, and there's a execution and acquisition side. So let's talk a little bit about the design and the strategy side. So Theodore Levitt once said, if you are selling a drill, you're not selling a drill, you're selling a hole. Because people don't want a 1/4 inch drill, right? They want a 1/4 inch hole. We try to sell them a drill, but what they want is an outcome. I don't want a drill. I want a 1/4 inch hole in my wall. I can get that through a drill or through an ultrasonic device that will still create that hole in the wall. So we get, especially as startup, as owners of startup businesses, we get caught up in our own product. We get caught up in what we're really doing, but we're not really thinking about what the customer really wants. Do they want the drill or do they want the hole? What is the outcome the customer is seeking? Because that's where the insight is. And if the marketing and the brand is not latched on to that insight, then that what we call the consumer connect is going to be very, very weak. So let me just talk you through an example. When you're looking for that insight, I think what you probably should be doing first is look at what job the customer is trying to solve, right? Even in your product design, value proposition design is a very interesting tool, not just for marketing, but for product design as well. But this is where marketing also starts with the value proposition. So when we look at a value proposition, we look at what is the job the customer is trying to solve, right? So if you're a startup in the music space, you might say, my business is around online music, right? But the fundamental point is the job a customer is trying to solve is listen to music. When I was small, we listened to music on tapes. I don't know if you guys have even seen it, but then it moved from there to CDs, to LPs, and now it's all on the cloud. How people listen to music changes, but the job of listening to music never changes. So, and that fundamental difference we need to understand, because most often we try to communicate or build a value proposition around how we think the customer is trying to solve. I'm sorry about that. How we think the customer is trying to solve the job. But what we're not thinking about is what is the outcome the customer is trying to achieve. So really identifying the job of what a customer is trying to achieve today is really, really important. Simple examples on the market. If you look at the telcos, they're a little late, but why do they think they are now giving us unlimited packages for Zoom, for Teams, or for YouTube? Because they've understood that we don't want, our job is not about going online for meetings or surfing for content. The job is really about controlling our finances. And hence 269 or 649 or 1,000 rupees for a set amount of GBs or unlimited usage on a particular platform. Now that's good value proposition design based on really understanding what job the customer is trying to achieve. So let's, I just wanted to detail that a little more for you when it comes to value proposition design, because this is the starting point for any marketing conversation. So let's take one more example. So this is Tesla about 10 years ago when they first came up with their electric car. When they looked at their customer, the customer was high-end or middle class, earning about $100,000, looking to satisfy many jobs, but more than anything, looking to be different from others and be environmentally conscious. But in doing that, they didn't want to look like. So, for example, if you before the Tesla, if you drove an economically or environmentally friendly vehicle, it looked like a spaceship. It was ugly, but it was economical. But this customer wanted something that was good looking, powerful, and economical. So this is a tool called a value proposition canvas. I just want you to see this tool, but to explain the tool, what Tesla did was, what you're seeing in red are all the pain points of the customer. So they kept talking to the customer to understand, when it comes to electric vehicles, what are your pain points? When it comes to electric vehicles, if the right on your screen, the circle, when it comes to electric vehicles in green, what are the benefits that you're looking for that you're not getting? So by listening to the customer, they were on the left of your screen, which is the value proposition or the product box. They were able to look at, how do we relieve these red boxes? How do we create solutions for those pains, and how do we create solutions for the benefits that the customer is looking at? So in value proposition design, it's very, very important to leave your office, go to the customer, sit with the customer and understand what value is the customer really looking for, what pain is the customer really trying to solve, and what gain is the customer really trying to create. Because even through this, you have a clear product brief and you have a clear marketing brief. The fact that Tesla was able to come up with a product that sold 100,000 units even before they were manufactured was the fact that they built it with the market. They kept talking to the customer, and they had a clear value proposition. And that is where marketing starts. That is the starting point. That is a fundamental role of marketing, to listen to the customer first and figure out what pain points I am solving, what gains I am creating, and how I convert that to a product strategy is the starting point. Without that, you will find that your marketing does not connect with your product, and therefore it doesn't really connect with the consumer or the customer. So that's the first point, right? So value proposition design is very, very important. I've only showed you a snapshot of a tool that can be used, but even if you, what you probably need to keep in mind in this short forum is to get your mind flowing. Just think about what pain points I'm solving, what extra benefits can I create, how do I talk to the customer, as many customers as possible, validate that, and be very, very clear about what value I'm offering the market, instead of what I think it should be, or instead of based on some kind of technology idea that I came up with, because just doing that is putting the cart before the horse. So that's the first step. Make sure you have a very, very clear value proposition. The second step is to really, really understand. Let's say we've created a clear value proposition. We have a clear product, a clear idea around the customer. Now we need to think about our brand. So what's a brand? A brand is something that identifies us, right? but that's a functional aspect of a brand. But a brand also creates a mental picture around who we should be seen as, how we sound, how we walk, how we talk, how someone feels after they associate with us. And what's happening today, and again, I see this with many startups and even large companies, is a brand is just a pretty name and a nice logo. So it's got a very functional transaction-based approach to it. A lot of companies, products, startup owners focus on who is the brand, what it is, and how it works. So it's a very, very narrow scope of a brand. But proper branding is more about the why than the who, right? The why boils back to the value proposition and design. The why is this brand in existence? Who does it matter to? And why should anybody believe in this brand? If you take powerful brands like Nike, they have a very powerful why, right? Why is Nike in existence? Nike is in existence because it believes anyone has the capability to be an athlete as long as you have as long as you have a human body. It doesn't matter if you're a professional or not. As long as you have a human body, you can be an athlete. That's their why. And that why leads to strong value proposition. That why leads to strong marketing, strong branding, and strong communication. So if you want to be a new age brand, please don't focus on just being a functional brand. You've got to think about, what is my why? Why am I in existence? What role do I play? And what is my purpose? So a lot of startups especially have very, very interesting stories around. Most of you are running a startup because you want to solve a problem you personally experienced, or you've seen an opportunity that nobody else has seen. There's a story behind your idea. That story needs to convert to a why. If you convert it to a why, it will also help you identify what role you're playing, what value you're driving, and what your purpose as a brand. If as a human being, if we have a purpose in life, as a brand, your product needs to have a brand, and that brand needs to have a purpose in life as well. And ideally, it should reflect your internal culture and therefore how it should be relevant externally. So let me take you through an example. It's a very powerful example of Michael Bloomberg. There's interesting, I just want to share this tool with you. I can make these slides available. So when you're thinking through your brand, this is an interesting tool that you could use. It's called a brand identity ladder. I'm assuming I'm talking mostly to startup founders or people who are early stage career. Get together, if you're working on something, get together with the rest of your founders, have this conversation. Firstly, what's our value proposition? Secondly, what's our brand identity ladder? How do we drive a why for a brand? Ask yourselves these questions. So as a brand, your brand must have a purpose. And the question you need to ask is, what role do I play in your life? So you need to ask this question from the point of your target customer. So let's say, let's pick a brand. Let's say I'm, which brand should we pick? Let's go back to Nike, the example, right? So let's say Nike's brand purpose. Nike is asking its customer, what role do I play in your life? And the answer is that I play the role of an athletic enabler. I tell you that any athletic achievement is possible if you believe, right? Brand character, what kind of person am I? So Nike is asking its customer, what kind of person am I? So the customer would say, I think you're innovative, I think you're contemporary, I think you're groundbreaking, I think you're non-traditional. There are character traits that you want others to see in you. Put that down there. What's the emotional payoff of a brand? How do I make you feel when we're together? So how does Nike make us feel when we wear Nike? Do we feel valued? Do we feel appreciated? Do we feel different? Do we feel that we belong to a class that believes in possibilities? Are all conversation points. What is our relationship like? So as a brand, what is the kind of relationship you want to build with your customer? Do you want to be an enabler? For example, a brand like e-channeling in Sri Lanka is an enabler. It helps us access a doctor at the touch of a button. There are brands that are facilitators. There are brands that can be insurance brands are trusted source of advice. Banks can be personal stability, but it's very, very important when you're working on your brand to understand what kind of relationship you would like to build with your consumer or your customer target market. When you say all of this, what is the evidence you can provide? So if I'm saying I'm an enabler in terms of the relationship I will build with a customer, what is the evidence I can provide of the brand actually doing it? And then the last question is the most important. When I do all of this, what is my essence? That is your why. Your why is your essence. What is my core that guides everything that I do, right? Is my essence, if I take, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of an app called Calm in the Apple App Store. It's an app that basically helps you meditate, plays nice forest sounds, bird sounds, guides you on meditation and mindfulness. The essence of Calm is spirituality. They believe in spirituality and they help others become spiritual by guiding them on their journey to mindfulness. So it's very important, even if you don't get everything else right, that your brand purpose and your brand essence aligns. Your essence is your DNA. What do you stand for? Do you stand for spirituality? Do you stand for transparency? Google's essence is democratization of information. Anything that we need is easily accessible. That's Google's essence. So as a brand, there's no right or wrong debate here, but it's important as founders that you get together, discuss this, and really, once you agree on this, really start living this. So let me talk you through an example. I think all of you know who Michael Bloomberg is, one of the savviest investors out there, and former mayor of New York, runs an investment channel called Bloomberg. What are his personal characteristics? I took this off of previous branding presentation I worked on. So if you look at Bloomberg, it's a financial news channel, and his characteristics as a founder is how his whole brand ethos and his whole branding strategy has been built on as well. So if you know the guy, he's extremely ambitious and risk-taking, works an 18-hour day, strong communicator, builds really, really good relationships, determined and persistent guy, absolutely visionary, and still hands-on at 70 plus years, still hands-on. It's his personality, it's his branding, it's his brand essence that has really translated into the Bloomberg brand as well. It's a pretty old brand. It's not just a news service. Today they have indices around stock markets. The AI driven. They give you insights around how to invest, where to invest, and the general financial health of the world today is on a Bloomberg channel. So this brand is a mirror reflection of its founder. It's all about collaboration, transparency, being innovative, philanthropic, fast-paced, and a lot more empowerment. So I think it's clear to you when you need to be able to translate your essence into your brand essence. And a good tool to use is the tool I showed you earlier. Figure out your role and arrive at your essence, because again, if not, you will be saying the same thing that your competition is saying. I'm going to talk about it later. The average Sri Lankan today, forget the Sri Lankan, the average consumer today's attention span is almost just 8 seconds. So if you're not distinctive enough, if you're not provocative enough, you're not really going to cut it. So general communication doesn't work. Well-designed brand-led communication and marketing works. And I'm just summarizing as we go. You first need to have a value proposition for that. And based on your value proposition, you design your brand. If you design your brand well, your brand also then tells you how to engage with your market. So Bloomberg takes this brand What it is, it's mostly a financial analytics service. It has different product aspects that talks to different customer types, from individuals to mutual funds to governments to banks to trading firms. But the brand is consistent. And what they stand for is financial empowerment, right? The right information at the right time helps all of these different stakeholders benefit from engaging with Bloomberg. Today we've come to a point where we argue that marketing is unnecessary, and personally I am a believer in it. If your value proposition is clear and you have a strong brand and a strong brand essence, the brand talks for itself, because when the value proposition is clear, your adoption is high and it creates much better word of mouth. So good brands really don't have to invest too much in marketing, in social media. That's all necessary, but more as a support. Our problem is we try to acquire customers without thinking this through. Look at all the, if I were to give you an example, I hope there's nobody from a bank here, but if you are, I still stand by what I'm saying. I think all the banks have got mobile wallets wrong. Huge marketing budgets, fancy advertising, lots of money on Google and Facebook. But essentially, if there is a discount for a product or with a merchant on a wallet, there is usage. If not, there is no usage, which goes to say that there is no value proposition. I mean, I'm sure the digital marketing manager there would be happy in terms of the reach they create, in terms of the Facebook following, the various media metrics in terms of their cost per thousand and the efficiency of their buy. Yes, they've reached the market, but the message is wrong. So let's stop making that mistake. I think you really need to think first in terms of what is the value I'm creating and how am I packaging that value. Because if not, you're probably going to reach the market. You'll communicate it a lot, but you'll find that your traction is very, very low. Yeah, let's move on. So once you're clear about what value you're creating for the market and how you're going to package that value in terms of your brand, is where you really need to start telling your story. And your story is around the content that you generate and the content strategy that you have. There are multiple examples for content strategies. There are multiple examples of content strategies, but I just want to keep it, really, really simple, and talk you through how to really think through a content strategy. Sorry about this. So I have some digital marketing experts working with me, and this is something they tell me all the time. If you're working on a content strategy around your brand or your business, there's the 50-30-20 rule. What does that mean? 50% of your content needs to be unbranded, non-promotional, and non-product, which means 50% of your content shouldn't carry your branding, shouldn't push a promotional message, and shouldn't talk about your product. And I go on, I'll give you some examples. 30% of your branding, of your content can be branded, but it should not talk about product or promotion. And then 20% is your hardworking content, which is branded, promotional driven, and product. Why do we follow this rule? I'm touching on it later today. Your market today doesn't want to be interrupted. How many times do we switch the channel or get up and go if we see an ad in between a program we're watching? That's because advertising by nature is interruptive. A good content strategy moves the customer from being interrupted to being educated. So if you take, brands are constantly investing in good content strategies. Unfortunately, I don't see most brands in Sri Lanka doing it, and I have to talk about a global example. If you take Johnson & Johnson, they're a huge player in the baby care market, baby and mother care market, and their biggest content as well as loyalty platform is a completely independent platform called Baby Center. And on babycenter.com, You can check it out. It tells you what to expect when you are pregnant, answers many questions that new moms have, has specialized posts from doctors, nutritionists. It's a completely unbranded content hub, but it connects back to the brand ethos. So Johnson & Johnson is about care, it's about specialization, it's about nutrition, it's about specialized innovation for mom and kids. So the content framework supports that, but without any branded or promotional push. And that's a fine balance that you need to achieve, but that strategy is very, very important. We're seeing that today in logistics companies, in telco companies, mostly in the B2B space today. A lot of brands are launching unbranded content platforms, and that's very important aspect of your content strategy. 30% of your content can be branded, but then again, it could be branded around your employees, your internal programs, your outreach programs, what you do around your CSR and your sustainability, but never around product or promotion. Excuse me. And then 20% of your content is around hard sell, hard push, tactical communication. Personally, I found this mix to work. It's an accepted norm and an accepted standard. So ideally, 80% of your content needs to be entertaining, interesting, or helpful, and only 20% really pushes the product. So if you're really looking at content around your brand, you can't do good content if you don't have a clear value proposition and a good brand framework. But if you have that, your content creation formula that I'm sharing with you, that has again worked for me and my team, is you need to think about content that educates about the brand and the category, that inspires your customer to be better, and entertain, because it's about quality of content that helps improve quality of life or gets people thinking. And whether you are a footwear brand or a wristwatch brand or a perfume brand or a service brand, this model stands. Yeah. So once you have your content, so I'm just giving you, the chronology of the thought process. When you have your content is when you can really look at what your channel strategy is going to be. So there's no hard and fast rule, but a clear framework around what am I going to use Facebook for, what am I going to use Instagram for, what am I going to use YouTube or web or email for. Right now, what I'm seeing in Sri Lanka is Facebook is becoming a bit of an older audience. It's more Instagram and YouTube. YouTube is driving more search than web. So, how do you really use that? The landscape is evolving, but as a team, have a view to what is your understanding of the channel and how you're going to use the channel, and how is that going to help you drive numbers at the end of it. But something else that I also want to share, a different thought process that I also want to share around content is you can start looking at content in this model as well. Credit to this is a model developed by multinational in Sri Lanka and in the largest media agency, which is Group M, sharing these learnings from them. Did it at a similar forum. So generally, content assets can be broken into two broad areas. Is your content going to be an interruption, or is your content going to educate, or will people seek out your content? In terms of the customer journey, are you going to influence people, or are you going to drive an action? So there's if you look at it, there's 4 types of content you can create. There's co-advertising content, there's news content, that's what's called passion content, or inspiring educational content, or needs content that targets a specific need. So let's look at an example. So like I said, the objective here is to shift from interruption to education or seek out. So here's an example of co-advertising, but done interestingly. Sorry, that's getting stuck. Please bear with me. It's technical error is not going to. So it's an embedded video. I'm sorry that there's a technical error. I can't figure that out right now. But essentially, it's the whole co-advertising aspect is presenting your product features in an interesting manner. So that's a video. But even if you look at how a product like Lego would do it, the whole proposition is around imagining possibilities. And there's an interesting play here between a block and how a possibility of that being seen as a dinosaur. So even co-advertising can be presented interestingly, creatively, and out of the box. News advertising, I hope this plays, is basically brand news, right? So this is that 20% branded promo pull or push kind of content that happens. Or it could be straightforward product benefits like this on a static post. But again, clearly thought through to pull out the message, push the reason to believe, and create that conversion. In terms of needs content, I mean, the beauty sector does this really well. They break down needs. So if you look at your skin needs, it can go from different types of skin needs to how different products tend to solve that, and they generally create a lot of long form content to help solve that. But what you need to really factor, and this is one of the most important slides, is when you're thinking about your content, think about different user behavior. So there's short attention span content and longer session plan content, but generally content can be broken down as to what type of content will be on the go. So that's like the 5 to 10 second videos that you see. What type of content do you want to get people to lean forward to watching and share with their friends? So what's your lean forward content strategy? And then in terms of the longer session, it's content that people will review at leisure. So what's that lean back long form content that you will build, you will design, is also a good model to keep in mind. But again, I'm reiterating, you can't do this if your value proposition is not clear and your brand ethos is not clear. So like I said, the reason to really think through content is right now our attention span is only 8.25 seconds. Even a goldfish has 9 seconds. So it's really, really important to have clarity around your brand strategy and how that runs through a content framework. What you're seeing today, what you're seeing on this screen is another content strategy that good brands use. It's called agile content. Good brands are constantly doing something called topic modeling, which is based on their brand ethos, based on their content framework. They keep tracking relevant topics that are, so this is just a visualization of Google Trends, but you can do that. Even Twitter today gives you an API to basically help you model which kind of conversations are relevant to your brands. And you can really start looking at cultural touch points based on various conversations that are relevant to a brand today. I think you guys are constantly seeing this in the form of memes, the best agile content creators, but brands are starting to drive agile content around political, what's a political connect to a brand. Signal toothpaste ran agile post when the networks went down, all the networks went down last year. When the zebra crossings turned to white, Surf did something again connected to the brand. So if your brand can be tongue-in-cheek, is young enough and has the brand space to get into agile, that too is an interesting take on how you can really look at content. But don't my advice to you is don't sell yourself short on the content. Remember, all the strategy that you do in the value proposition design and the brand design is finally reflected in the content. And that's where again a lot of marketing programs fail, because great strategy, great brand design, and then penny pinching or lack of detail in the execution also doesn't really work. So how does my content sit on my website, on my social media channels, and my paid and owned media? What is the objective for each asset, and how am I going to measure it? So again, just a suggestion here. All these are detailed individual sessions, but I think at the end of it, it's more about how many customers am I acquiring based on my value proposition, and how many of them are recurring, and how is that tied to an overall business plan that I've built, is that line of sight you need to create between your metrics and your business plan. So that's about the whole thought process I wanted to share with you. So just in summary, marketing is about growth. Marketing is about really the starting point of your business plan. It's the discipline that drives consumer and market connect and continues to drive market relevance. So if you are thinking about marketing, these are the 4 main steps that I've been talking about throughout. Invest in a credible value proposition, build an incredible story by first building an incredible brand and then connecting a great content framework to it. Make very, very efficient usage of your media, plan your media assets. What's my owned media? What's my earned media? What's my paid media? And then review that diligently in terms of how am I setting my KPIs and how are my KPIs tied to my business achievements. I think that full line of sight and that managing that full circle is very important. So thank you very much for patiently listening to me. I know I said a lot. I wanted to cover the thought process. I'm happy to share this deck. My email is at the bottom. If you need any further advice or questions or clarifications, please send me an email and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much and good luck. Moderators, that is it for me.
Yeah. I hope this session was insightful to everyone and you learned a lot. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box, and also you can raise your hands if you want to ask them yourself. We will unmute you and give you the chance to ask your questions. Also, if anyone is watching from the Facebook live stream, you may leave any questions you have in the chat and they will be directed to us. Before moving to the Q&A session, we would like to give a shout out to our bronze partners, SEMA Sri Lanka, IT Solutions Partner, My Shopbox, and our advisory partner, PwC.
Our story is one of reimagining. Reimagining who you can be, what you can achieve, and how SEMA can support you. Founded in the UK in 1919 with the belief that an accountant's impact goes beyond the balance sheet, SEMA joined forces with the AICPA in the US to form the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Today, we serve members and students in 179 countries and territories. Contact SEMA Sri Lanka.
Meet Nadisha and Nipani. They make upcycle products and want to share this passion. So they started a business and took it online using Shopbox. Shopbox is an online commerce solution which allows anyone to easily and affordably sell online. It provides all the tools needed to set up and run your own website. Have your online store set up in minutes by entering your store details and uploading your product. Taking the hassle out of setting up and maintaining an online store, Shopbox helps you work on the more important things, like growing your business. Make your business successful. Shopbox.
You can raise them yourselves by raising your hand. Hi, Musab, you can go on.
Sure. Hi, Irfan. This question is to you. I believe everyone here attending this might be wondering this as well. The main reason most of us are in this session is to understand how do we work for the pitch when we are looking for an investor from a marketing and a sales point of view. What are the key factors the investors would want to see? Is it the numbers or is it the purpose, the why, like you mentioned in your slides? If I can have an answer for that, that will be great.
Thank you, Musa. Good question. I speak as an investor myself. I think even from a marketing angle, I'm first looking at the why. Why is your business, or why should what is the why of your product, right? What's the value proposition? And then how is that why brought alive in terms of a brand, and how that brand comes alive. that's the first part an investor will look at, because the why also tells you if that business is viable and if there is a strong consumer connect. That's the first part. The second part of what an investor will look for in the pitch deck from a marketing point of view is, based on the why, is there a clear definition of the user, an understanding of the user journey, and then user metrics. So how am I understanding how many users I can onboard? What is the basic thing? How much is it costing me to acquire those users? So what's my cost per acquisition? And then based on my cost per acquisition, what is my return? So that's the second part. But I think marketing's input into the business model and the pitch deck is the why, the consumer connect, and the consumer acquisition. Those three need to align.
Great. Thanks, Irfan.
Thank you, Musab.
Mr. Irfan, there's another question in the chat box. Ahmed has asked how to indirectly promote a product.
There are lots of ways to indirectly promote. Thank you, Ahmed. Good question again. Lots of ways to indirectly promote a product. So there are paid, couple of tactics come to mind. Of course, firstly, influencers. It's a hotly debated topic. So not just any influencer, just because someone has 1 million fans doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be good for you. But I would say informed influencers. So let's say if it's an influencer in the fitness sector, I would probably work with an influencer who I know is doing what they're talking about and has a genuine following of say 500 people, which is still better than a fake influencer who has 1 million followers. So I think good influencer identification and working with an influencer is one strategy to indirectly promote a product. Product placements can be an indirect strategy. We're having an online forum right now. If Coke wanted to do a product placement, I would have had some water with a Coke branded mug. That's an indirect product placement. So enough forums today for product placements. Working with related parties today, there are lots of Facebook pages, communities, Instagram communities that can help you promote your product or your story indirectly. So and then of course running your own, setting up something like your own blog that talks about the general problems your product is focusing on, illustrates your why, and creates content and content aspects around it is also an indirect way of promoting a product, because you could always have a call to action around your product when you share that unbranded content. So it's 4 or 5 ideas. There's a lot more, but I think you catch the drift. You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? You can put them in the chat box. I think that's about it. And that brings us to the end of the 3rd workshop of Jumpstart. I would like to thank Mr. Ahmed Irfan for joining with us today, and for sharing your time and knowledge with us. I'm sure everyone today learned a lot of valuable things. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for inviting me, Saniti. I'd like to thank the Jumpstart committee as well. So appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Irfan.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much. Good night.